So behind us here is Marsha Hunt, who was, what role did she play in this movie, None Shall Escape?
Well, in None Shall Escape, Marsha Hunt plays what you would call the female lead, but I have to stress to you that this was a B film, a programmer. Back in the day, this was part of like a double bill, because if for those who were here tonight, they probably didn't realize that the film said Columbia Pictures Corporation presents, or the Columbia logo, and then it said None Shall Escape, and the very next credit says with Marsha Hunt, Alexander Knox, blah, blah, blah. Let me go back. It said with Marsha Hunt. If this was an A picture, it would have said Marsha Hunt, Alexander Knox in. But this was a B film. So even though her part in this film was the female lead, it was still considered a programmer, and she has that with credit. But she is top billed, but not above the title.
This movie is 1946?
44, actually. It was released in 1944, and it probably can be considered the first film which showed a lot of the Jewish persecution by the Nazis' hand. Now, if we go back to 1940, October 1940, Charlie Chaplin was trying to make a film as far back as 1937 and 8 for his wife, Paulette Goddard. But he had said that he couldn't think of feminine whimsy or fun stuff while the world was being persecuted by a hideous and grotesque Adolf Hitler. So Chaplin decided to strike out with the only way he knew how, which was to make a film ridiculing Adolf Hitler. And that's how The Great Dictator came to be by October 1940. Charlie Chaplin was the first film comedian or actor in films to make a film that had an anti-Nazi message. And after that, everyone felt fair game for Charlie Chaplin. Wow, okay. Everyone felt it was fair game after that. So Ernst Lubitsch makes To Be or Not to Be with Carol Lombard and Jack Benny, and other studios started to get a little more involved. Now, Columbia was not a major studio at the time. Yes, they had won the Academy Award in 1935 for It Happened One Night and Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, so they were getting some serious street cred. You Can't Take It With You in 38. And so they were getting very significant prominence. So by the time they made this film in 1944, which was significant, you have to remember Warner Brothers had started earlier than that, and the other studios had started earlier. And Columbia didn't have the budget that the other major studios did. But they did make this movie, and then they would go on to do other stuff. But what I love especially about this particular film is they did not take it too lightly. The sequence in the train when they're loading the Jews onto the thing, and you have to understand, it has not been documented, but we lost so many people, and in my family tree we've tried to go back to see if we lost anybody, and no matter how many times I see this film, when I see these Jewish people being machine gunned down for such a stupid reason, it's very emotional. You did not see that in the other films that Warner Brothers were making.
Even subsequent pictures?
No. Well, as the war ended, films that I embrace with my whole being, like Judgment at Nuremberg, films that talk about it after the fact, they resonate with me. But this film, which has a feeling like the war is over and now we're going to try somebody, because this is like Judgment at Nuremberg years before it really happened. This really was brave and bold.
As good a picture as this is, None Shall Escape, why isn't it shown more on cable, classic channels?
Well, okay. There are some films out there that are not nearly as good, but were popular for one reason or another, or did not tend to offend, and so they got released and re-released. And then when, for instance, since you're talking about this film, which was released by Columbia, the Screen Gems film package, they would release films that would be popular for television, like the Three Stooges short subjects, which are still available today. And there were so many motion pictures that you could see on television and on cable, and will get re-released because of a major star. It Happened One Night. Clark Gable is an MGM star, yet because he was a bad boy, Columbia grabbed him because Louis B. Mayer wanted to make him pay penance And what happened? He won Best Actor, and the film won Best Picture, and they never loaned Clark Gable out again. So Columbia had nothing to lose, everything to gain. And so in this particular film, you have a story that is so important, and yet they still, even though there's the gunning down of all the Jews, there's a lot of stuff in this film that didn't happen. But it did make a point. It did say there is some crap going on in Europe, and we have to be aware about it. And as Chris Horak, who did a fabulous connotation after the film, this film generally was seen by the people who were not fighting the war. So the majority of the people that went to movie theaters in the mid-40s, or I'm sorry, from 42 to 45, were women and children, and they were watching that.
But here in the 20 teens, we have even Inglourious Basterds made by modern filmmakers. And sure, this is authentic. Why wouldn't the cable film programmers want to schedule a movie like this?
I have the answer. They don't know it exists. There are films that the public at large do not know they exist because why? Because they're not in color, widescreen, with DTS stereo sound. These films are black and white, and they're seen on a little square picture. And the modern public at large does not care. And yet, when they see it, they do care. But I think what's going to happen for this generation, and sad to say, should this country go to war again, the same way World War II did, the same way Desert Storm did, and these young people are forced to go fight for the freedom that we so richly embrace and deserve, then they might understand why. And we've had films about Desert Storm, we've had films about other wars, but we have never had so many films about World War II or Korea or the Vietnam War like the wars of today. And it just does not resonate with them yet. It will, at some point, sad to say, it will. I think for Jewish people, it would be important for them to understand that this film, None Shall Escape, and so many other films that have been made at the time resonate because people who were brave enough to make a stand back then deserve to have a voice today so we can learn for tomorrow.
The depictions of the callousness, the mentality of the Nazis that this picture shows has rarely been conveyed, even in Son of Saul, for instance, which now is in popular consciousness. There's an element of showing the mindset of tyranny and of wickedness that this movie, is it unique in that way to you?
This is one of the few maverick films of its time. We have other maverick films. When I saw Saving Private Ryan, and I've seen all of the World War II films that have been made at the time and even after in the 50s and 60s and 70s. When I saw Saving Private Ryan, the first 30 minutes of that movie, I was nauseated because
the D-Day invasion scene.
I had never seen anything in The Longest Day. I had never seen anything like that, and that brought it so close to home that I tended to judge even the films I had seen years ago by that. And then I realized that is so unfair because I did not experience it firsthand. I don't know what they were thinking back when it was actually happening. So because we can look back at stuff, because we can see from a looking glass, we tend to look at it in a different way. And that's why I will look at a film like None Shall Escape in a whole different way, because here is a director, Andre de Toth, who also fled to come to this country to say, here it is. And he filmed and wanted to film other stuff, but Harry Cohn pulled it back. He said, no, you can't do that. So he did what he could do, and it made a statement. And here we are in 2016 thinking about it. It's amazing.
Would you encourage viewers to contact Turner Classic Movies and American Movie Classics?
I would encourage viewers to contact Sony Pictures because they're the ones that own None Shall Escape, and let people know that this film is relevant today and important. And the next time we as a country have to go into battle because of someone's religious belief.
Well, we're at war today.
Well, we are.
We're in Afghanistan.
We are not only in Afghanistan. I mean, there are so many wars going on, even in this country alone. I mean, we still have Nazis that are trying to be a part of what's going on. But this film should be seen the same way that the best years of our lives should be seen. And I think that film changed everything for everybody about what happens when the people come home from the war. And for me, that may be the greatest post-World War II film ever made.
Well, as an anti-war message, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, but in this case, it would be the reason for going to war, to stop tyranny.
Oh, absolutely. Not just tyranny. I mean, to stop people from believing not just what they believe in, but who they are and what they stand for. This film is as I said earlier, it's relevant. It's relevant in the 21st century, and it'll be relevant in the 22nd century. As long as people care about who they are and what they are and how they are, this film's relevant.